Hola, my friends. I hope you're all well and that you had a wonderful weekend. I want to start this week by saying thank you so much for all of the wonderful birthday messages you sent me last week. They really warmed my heart, especially when you guys were writing in with what you've learned from our work together. It really warmed my heart. You have no idea how much it meant to me. So thank you very much for all of your love last week. I really felt it. So as Nick announced this morning, this week we are talking about social anxiety, especially in relation to emerging from another lockdown, right? And when I say social anxiety, I don't want you to think about some sort of scary mental illness. I'm just speaking about like a sort of maybe a slightly bigger version of shyness, right? Kind of what I saw happen a lot and I experienced within myself during, since COVID has hit, is this kind of withdrawal, right? We've had to withdraw from the world. We were used to being out in the world all the time and not really even thinking about how much we were out in the world. And we've just had to withdraw. We've had to go within. And for some of us, that's been tough because, some people are used to being around people all the time. That's how they get their energy. They don't like being alone. So it's been really tough. And for them, they're just like, oh my God, like let's get out of here. They can't wait. And for some people, sort of the going within wasn't that tough and the staying alone wasn't that tough. But then the re-emerging became a bit tough because they found that they went back into their shells somewhat. So this week is more, it's more for you guys who are finding it a bit more sort of like, I'm not surprised if your feelings are a bit mixed with regards to this, right? Kind of, you might on the one hand be dying for some novelty, right? So you're dying to go to a restaurant or you're dying to go out and meet your friends or you're dying to see some family members you haven't seen in ages. So there's partly that. And then there's also the feeling of like, sort of being used to just kind of being on your own and not being around people. And, we all have the fundamental human need for love and belonging. And with that need comes fear, right? With any need comes fear. So what happens when we're around other people is that our fears of rejection and judgment get triggered more. Right? If you're not around other people, so there aren't as many chances for misunderstandings or for conflict or for anything like that, these fears are less, they're less pronounced, they're less intense, you don't feel them so much. But when you are, around people, you will have conflict every so often, or you will, sometimes maybe misunderstand somebody or maybe feel judged by someone. So it's quite natural to feel hesitant around others sometimes, especially when you haven't been around others for a while. So here are some tips. And before I give you these tips, I just want to say the reason that it's important to acknowledge the shyness or the anxiety within ourselves is because any emotion that isn't acknowledged within ourselves continues to drive our behavior and our decision making, right? So if I feel socially anxious and I refuse to acknowledge it, then I am going to limit myself. I am going to limit myself from interacting with others. I am going to make up excuses. I am going to find other things to do, more important, busier things to do, so that I avoid what I'm fearful of. And then that cuts off my growth. It limits my growth. It limits my spontaneity. And, if I limit my growth and spontaneity, I limit my fulfillment and joy and happiness in this world. But when you can acknowledge an emotion within yourself and you just say, okay, I see it, it's there, like I have been feeling a little bit like sort of, okay, I'm going to be around people again, I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, it's a bit like, I got used to like my own space and having it, the excuse made for me for why I don't want to be there. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to acknowledge. And when you acknowledge it, it stops to run your behavior, right? Because then you have awareness, so you can make choices. You can make different choices. You are not preconditioned. So here are 3 tips for how to kick ass as you emerge from lockdown this time around. So tip number 1 is to remember that it's okay to feel shy or socially awkward, as we emerge from lockdown, right? We all have the fundamental human need for love and belonging, and that means that with those needs we experience the fears of rejection and judgment. This is 100% normal. And, even people who seem like they never have these fears, they do. They might just not be aware of it. So, cut yourself some slack. It is perfectly normal. You are not a freak. You are not weird. You're human. Tip number 2 is to calibrate your expectations, right? So if before COVID hit, you were more outgoing, you felt more comfortable in public, and then, sort of over time, you went more and more into your shell and it became a little bit harder, and you noticed yourself, for example, going for walks and hoping you didn't meet anybody or whatever, just, kind of bring acceptance to that and just calibrate your expectations. Don't expect yourself to be exactly where you were before. Give yourself time to ease back into it. Be a kind friend to yourself. And the 3rd tip is to keep doing what scares you, right? We overcome fear by listening to it and then leaning into it, right? That's how courage is built. Courage is built by doing the thing that scares us. So keep getting out there, meet people who you want to meet, put yourself into those awkward, sticky, scary situations. And before you know it, it will be second nature again, and it won't be so overwhelming, and it will be absolutely fine. You'll be used to it. I am wishing you lots of love and thanking you for tuning in again and listening to what we have to share. Peace.